Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again for story time right here on Thailand Bound. I've got 5 stories for you. I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to jump straight in with story number 1.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I previously sent a story about my trip to Thailand a few months ago when a woman in Phuket took advantage of me. I recently went back to Thailand in late September/October and have another story to share. I'm pleased to report that I learned valuable lessons from my last trip and nothing like that happened this time around. I'm 37 and this story starts with me speaking to a girl online. I agreed for her to be a holiday girlfriend in Bangkok for 4 days at an agreed price. Leading up to our meeting, she was sending increasingly frequent messages and seemed even more excited and interested than I was. She quoted a price for 1 night, but for 3 or more each night was half the price. We met up and had a good time. We connected really well and had a great aerobics every day. On our last night, we had a trip to Ayutthaya where I had booked a hotel for the night. She sounded confused and said she thought I had booked the hotel for 2 nights. I explained that I hadn't because I was going to Pattaya the next day. She was never quite the same after that. She said, "You never told me you were going to Pattaya. Why don't you take me with you?" I reminded her that we had only agreed on 4 nights. We took a minivan back to Mochit in Bangkok, and while she waited for her ride home, she was crying. I then left her and took a cheap minibus to Pattaya. The first girl continued sending me messages as if everything was fine, but I could tell something was off with her. I told her I had a great time and thought we got along well. For me, it was just an agreed arrangement. I was happy with the time we shared. Later that day, I'd been talking to another girl from Pattaya online, and she asked if I wanted to meet up. I thought, why not? I met her, and she was even more attractive than her pictures. She was a bar girl on her day off, but with her looks, she could easily pass for a go-go girl. This bar girl even paid for a couple of drinks at Tree Town. She suggested going to Walking Street to meet her British friend, so I agreed, and she ordered and paid for the motorbike taxi. Coincidentally, this British guy lived only 20 minutes away from me back home, which was unique, and we had a good laugh together. The girl came back to my hotel, but passed out on the bed, so there was no aerobics that night. She stayed asleep until 3 p.m. I wanted her to leave, and I felt pretty hungover myself. That evening, I bought a couple of cans and walked down Beach Road, checking out all the freelancers, doing a bit of window shopping. I asked a few of them about their rates, and the average for a short time was 1,000 baht. After some drinks, I found a woman I liked, and she took me back to my hotel on her motorbike. It ended up being one of the cheapest nights out with aerobics I've ever had. The next day, I visited 2 massage shops, and one after the other. I met one of the prettiest women I've ever seen at one of the shops, and she gave me an incredible experience. Her massage only lasted about 10 minutes. The rest of the time was pure fun, including aerobics. Later, I went to Sriracha, where I'd been chatting online with a girl before arriving in Thailand. I met a Filipino girl there, and we had a fun time with plenty of aerobics. She talked a lot about her best friend, a Thai woman she'd known for 17 years, but who had recently blocked her on everything. She asked to use WhatsApp on my phone to message her friend. Meanwhile, the first girl from Bangkok continued sending long messages, calling me a butterfly and saying I'd hurt her feelings. I reminded her that we'd agreed on the number of days beforehand and that nothing more was involved, but it was clear she'd developed feelings while I hadn't. After 4 days away, I returned to Pattaya for more fun. I met several women who all called me handsome man and said I love you. After only knowing me for a few hours, it was really strange. The lies were so obvious, it was funny, and I enjoyed playing along. I never take a bar girl seriously. I decided to start messaging the Filipino girl's Thai friend on WhatsApp because she sounded like a fun person. After a bit of persuasion, she agreed to meet me. She lived only 5 minutes from Bangkok airport, which was convenient since my trip was ending. I was excited to meet her and even left Pattaya a day early to spend more time with her. The Filipino girl had warned me her friend was a little crazy and had some mental health issues, which I definitely noticed over the 3 days I spent with her. She's 47, a bit older than me, but I work with many older Thai women in the UK and I get along well with them. I find I can relate to older Thai women more because they often have more life experiences and generally speak better English than younger Thais who seem to be glued to their phones. I'm not concerned about having kids, so age doesn't much matter to me. I also find older women are more entertaining in aerobics, and this lady was aerobics obsessed. We got along well, and I felt sorry for her because of her mental health issues. She took care of me and even cooked for me. And although she doesn't have much money, she refused any help. She said, "You need some money for food at the airport." She has 3 teenage kids who live in Scotland with their ex-husband, who is Scottish. Normally, I wouldn't go for a woman with more than 1 child, but since they're grown up, it didn't bother me. She even has a UK visa and already has a flight booked to visit family in Edinburgh later this month. Edinburgh is around 5 hours from where I live, so I'm planning to visit her and stay with her for a few days. She mentioned she'd rather not go back home just yet and asked if I could come to get her after she's seen her family and have her stay with me for a few months. Meeting someone who already has a visa is rare and saves a lot of hassle with fees and paperwork. I've dealt with this before since my ex-wife was from the Philippines, so it's a big plus to get to know her without the hassle. I think I could help her with her mental health issues. Almost like a rehab, she's very excited to meet me and my family. On my last day in Thailand, she invited some of her family to meet me, and she was thrilled that they liked me. If things go well, I might quit my job and take an English teaching position there. It's not the best paying job, but I don't have much to lose, and I just want a simple life which makes me happy. This woman owns her own house, so I just pay her some rent money. I'm really excited about driving to Edinburgh, spending more time with her and bringing her back for a few months. None of this was expected. I hope you enjoyed this story, and maybe I'll have a follow-up in the next few months. So quite a nice story there. Glad it kind of worked out with the older women. The only thing I'd say on that, the girl he was with for four nights who basically didn't want him to leave. I don't think it's a case of she suddenly fell in love with this guy after 4 days. I think what it is, they try to hang on to customers as long as they can, and they're very aggressive at it. So even though you've paid for your time and your 2 days, 3 days, whatever, she's very reluctant to let you go, and she'll try her hardest to hang on to you because obviously the longer she's with you, the more money she's going to make. And they can be quite ruthless, the bar girls, when it comes to that. Right, let's jump into story number 2. My first trip to Thailand was Christmas 2023 for 1 month. I fell in love with Thailand immediately and made some lifelong friends who showed me the ropes. I'm streetwise, so adapting wasn't too hard. That's not to say I didn't get scammed a few times with drinks, but I just avoided those bars afterwards. Overall, I had the most amazing time with plenty of laughs and aerobics with the girls. The month flew by, and before I knew it, I was heading back to the UK. It wasn't long before I decided to book a flight back in April for the water festival, which was incredible. One night, I met 2 Americans who invited me to join them at a bar along the river on Walking Street in Pattaya. We met around 10 p.m. and the place was buzzing. We were drinking and sharing stories while watching 2 bar girls playing pool and completely defeating any customer brave enough to challenge them. Some even brought their own cues, only to leave quickly in defeat. By midnight, the bar was packed with freelancers. 2 of them sat on our table and 1 of them sat next to me. She was small and very pretty, but I wasn't interested since I'd been playing hard the last couple of weeks and was pretty tired. The problem started when she smiled and said something I couldn't hear over the loud music. When I leaned in thinking she'd repeat herself, she instead grabbed my ear and bit my nose so hard that both my ear and nose started bleeding. I was shocked and pushed her away, shouting a few choice words. Loads of other bar girls came over, shooing her away, and security threw her out. My 2 American friends were shocked, saying they'd never seen anything like it. Fortunately, a beautiful Thai girl took care of my bleeding. She said it was probably due to the girl taking a substance. Apparently, there's some weird substance they chew, though not noses, thankfully. I ended up taking my nurse back to my hotel where the aerobics were amazing. She didn't want to charge me because of what happened though I insisted. After a couple of days, the bruising went down, but I was left a little weary of getting too close to girls for the first time. I'm heading back to Pattaya this Christmas for a month and can't wait. Thailand is a safe and beautiful country, and I've been told behaviour like this is rare. It's all behind me now, and I'm glad I didn't get aggressive with the girl, as I'm sure security would have just thought I was another drunk Farang. That's actually a very, very bizarre story. I've never ever heard of a bar girl biting somebody, especially on the face like that. And yeah, she must have been on some kind of substance. And what I'm guessing as well, the girl who actually fixed him up, patched him up and took him back to the hotel, spent the night with him and didn't want any compensation for it. I'm kind of guessing she was probably the mama-san, and she was probably afraid that he would report the incident to the police, causing problems for the bar. So by her comforting him in that way, obviously it would have made him feel better, but it worked out for everybody anyway. But as I say, a very, very bizarre incident. I've never seen anything. I've seen bar girls punch guys and break bottles over their heads and things like that, but never bite a guy's nose, and I hope I'd never do see it, to be honest. Right, let's jump into story number 3. I am a 52-year-old Australian guy and a long-time viewer of your channel. I love the stories, so I thought I'd share my own Pattaya experience in 2019 after 10 years of a fairly uneventful marriage. Things broke down with my wife and I suddenly became another divorce statistic. There I was, a middle-aged, middle-class, middle-income guy in Sydney, starving for some kind of female attention. Unsurprisingly, I soon learned about this wonderful place called Pattaya. After a few months of devouring everything I could find on YouTube remotely located to it, I managed to arrange a 10-day holiday to the land of smiles. The 10 days I arrived in Pattaya, it felt like life began again, but only better. I stayed at a local hotel and went to LK Metro and Soy Bakau every night. I was a total newbie, acting like the classic 2-week millionaire. I was throwing cash around like a doctor had given me a week to live, so I was making the most of every moment I had left. I was partying and doing aerobics every night. Funnily enough, the only thing losing weight was my wallet. After about a week of this, I wanted to tick something big off my bucket list and decided I would bar find 3 partners for one epic aerobic session, if you can catch my drift. That night, I went out to Champagne Club on LK Metro and hit it off with a slim, attractive dancer named Boom. I told Boom my plan to have a 3-lady party and asked if she would be interested. She was up for it all right, but had one condition. She didn't want to go with any girls from her own bar. She wanted us to go to other clubs on LK to pick up the other candidates. First, we went to Sugar Sugar and met a friend of Boom's, another slender, caramel-skinned girl, not too different from Boom. Her name was B. I was very attracted to B, and she seemed quite excited about being part of the group session with Boom. I think they were close friends, so I paid B's bar fine and she skipped off to get changed. She reappeared from the change room in her civilian clothes, looking even better. As a side note, I always enjoy seeing the girls strutting around the go-go bars in high heels, but watching them reappear in flip-flops and jeans is even better. With 2 lovely girls walking on either side of me, I already felt really cool. But I wasn't done yet, so we headed off in search of lady number 3. If you're doing the maths, yes, this was a ridiculously expensive night, but the thought of sitting back at my desk in Sydney the following week was motivation enough to push me on, and really I couldn't care less about burning through a few extra $100 for the experience of a lifetime. Such is the mentality of the 2-week millionaire, I guess. After a short walk, we ended up at Queen Club. The 2 girls wanted to check out a lady who worked there. Apparently, they had seen her on LK Metro before and were interested to see if she was up for it. We walked into Queen through the back curtains, and there she was, front and centre on stage. Our number 3, this was D. D was super fit with quite a muscular gym junkie physique, massive bolt-on balloons and tattoos all over her. Boom and Beam were giggling and practically drooling over Dee on stage. Although not normally my type, I found her quite attractive too. Long story short, Dee agreed to join us. I paid the bar fine and off we went. As I walked through LK Metro arm in arm with three beautiful girls, I got a few friendly jeers from other punters. What a feeling, and another reason I love Pattaya. Where else can a regular guy get the rock star experience for around 1,000 Australian bucks? Within moments, we were back in my room at the hotel, undressed and took turns showering. Being the gentleman, I waited for them to finish before taking a quick shower myself. As I rinsed myself off, I could hear them giggling in the bedroom. I must have set the world record for the fastest shower ever. Then I emerged from the bathroom wearing nothing but a towel, expecting to make a grand entrance. A slight blow to my ego, they'd already started without me. After a few minutes, I turned my attention to Dee, and that's when she pulled the brakes. "Whoa, wait," she said. "I only agreed to do a show, not aerobics." "What?" I said. "It's 3,000 for short time, right?" She sat upright looking defiant. "Sorry, but you want aerobics, you must pay more, 2,000 baht extra." Boom and Bee looked at her, then looked at me, then at each other, clearly thinking, wow, she's a clever lady. Why didn't we think of that? Dee knew I wouldn't let a couple of thousand baht come between me and the memory of a lifetime. So I agreed to the extra 2,000 and we continued with our aerobics. After about 3 more minutes, I was done and the session was over. I know, but I'm only human and these girls are experts after all. Soon, the girls were all dressed and waiting for payment as I rummaged through the safe for their cash. I stood at the door handing them their pay as they walked out. First Dee, then Bee, then Boom did something I didn't expect. "You want I stay with you tonight?" "No extra, just free." Okay, I was happy about that and I felt special. A few days later, it dawned on me that she probably just wanted to sleep in the air conditioning. Not because she was attracted to me, but who cares? It was a nice feeling regardless. So there it is, an experience I'll never forget. You got to love Pattaya, right? Thanks for reading out my story. Do you know, when I read that the first time, guys, I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many other guys have, over the years, have gone over to Pattaya just to experience a fantasy that they couldn't experience anywhere else in the world. And it's right what he says, you can do that, absolutely. Right, let's. It's going to be quite a long upload because there is 5 stories, so I'm not going to mess about. I'm going to jump straight into story number 4. My name is Ray and I live in Manchester. Now, at 51, I'm still happily single and never been married. My friend Martin is 47. Martin started working with me back in 1991 at an electronics wholesale company. We were good work friends, occasionally meeting for drinks outside work, but we didn't do much beyond that. In 1996, I started a new job and Martin came to work there as well. Neither of us had any serious girlfriends for a while. It was mostly casual relationships, but we had one common interest, our fascination with Asian women. So we decided it was time to take a trip to Thailand, which would be the first for both of us, but way back in 2001. By November, we were all set and Martin booked a package deal with Thai Airways. Just a week before we were due to leave, Martin twisted his knee playing football, but we kept the trip on. Despite his painful knee, Martin managed and we finally landed at the old Don Mueang airport, thrilled to begin our adventure. We booked a taxi to Pattaya from the airport and stepping out into the heat felt like walking into a blast furnace. Arriving in Pattaya, we checked into the Royal Cliff Hotel. Not right in the action, but they had a shuttle into town, so it worked out. We booked a twin room and quickly dropped our bags to explore Pattaya. It was quiet at first on Walking Street, but we wandered, picked up a few tourist trinkets and had a relaxing walk along Beach Road. Eventually, we ended up at a German restaurant for dinner, which was fantastic. Later that evening, we returned to Walking Street, heading into our first bar, which was called the Zebra Bar. We were stunned. Everywhere we looked, beautiful women surrounded us, and we couldn't believe our luck. So we sat down, sipping cold Singer beer, and soon 2 girls joined us. We brought them drinks, and they seemed nice enough. I can't recall Martin's girl's name, but the girl I sat with was named Som. I remember being surprised by Martin's choice. His girl seemed older and not particularly attractive. I think her name was Noi. We got along well, drinking quite a bit. We asked if they'd like to continue the night back at our hotel, and they agreed. We learned about bar fines, which we paid when we got back to the hotel. The receptionist informed us we'd have to pay an additional 400 baht to take them to our room, which was paid. We decided to take turns for privacy. The next morning, we took the girls out for breakfast, and Noi asked if we wanted them to stay with us and show us around Pattaya. That sounded good to us, so we agreed. Noi arranged for a traditional massage for Martin's knee, and it seemed to help as the pain faded. Som's English wasn't great, and as I'm not a big talker, this suited me. She couldn't tell me any hardship stories or make any requests for money. I felt some sympathy for these girls working in bars, though I realised I was quite naive on this first trip to Thailand. Most nights we hung out at the Zebra Bar, where we met a funny Thai lady and her German husband. They had us laughing all night. She was a lovely person. After about 5 days, Noi suggested that Martin move into her small apartment and Som could stay in my hotel room. Poor Martin ended up staying in Noi's tiny place while I had the luxury of our hotel room. Noi and Som took us to all the tourist spots around Pattaya, and we had a fantastic time. Noi even suggested we go to Bangkok, which we were easily persuaded to do. Noi organised the transport and hotel arrangements for us. In Bangkok, we had an amazing couple of days. We visited a floating market, took a long tail boat ride along the canals, and saw the traditional Thai houses lining the canal. Noi had also arranged a driver for the day, a friendly guy who joined us for dinner in the evening. We spent the next day visiting temples and other tourist spots. That evening, we went to a Thai nightclub where we seemed to be the only foreigners. One funny moment was when we went to the bathroom and a guy started giving us a shoulder massage for tips, which took some getting used to, but we learned it's common there. The next day we returned to Pattaya and decided to visit some go-go bars, though Noi kept us away from Walking Street and took us to one called Windmill. Neither of us was a fan of the go-go bars. We preferred smaller bars and enjoyed dinners along Beach Road. Later, I learnt that Noi's apartment had no air conditioning, which made me feel sorry for Martin. The girls were happy because we mostly drank in their bar, meaning each drink we bought for them brought a commission. Eventually, our holiday came to an end and the girls came with us to the airport. They both cried as we gave them the last of our thaibar, which I now know is a regular game they play with fake tears, etc. On the flight, we reflected on our adventure, agreeing it had been a great success with no regrets. I stayed in touch with Noi briefly afterwards, though her English wasn't great, so she used a friend to translate. She messaged me the classic, "It's my birthday today," so I sent her 3,000 baht anyway. Back then, the exchange rate was about 70 baht to the pound. That was the end of my first Thailand experience, but Martin was completely smitten. Noi had him hooked, and back in the UK, he called her almost daily, sending her money. Living with his parents, he had disposable income, and just a few months later, he was on his way back to Thailand. I didn't join him as I'd met someone locally, but Martin was sure Noi was the one and was deeply in love. Soon, Martin's trips became more frequent. He met Noi's family in her village in Isan, and they ended up marrying there. Martin even gave her money to build a house in her village. Less than 2 years passed before things unravelled. One day, Martin received an email likely intended for another husband of Noi's. The other man was American and had thought Noi was his girlfriend too, regularly sending her money. It was a hard pill for Martin to swallow, but he learned a lesson and vowed it would never happen again, though he still wanted to return to Thailand. By 2003, my own relationship had ended and I was feeling down. Martin encouraged me to join him for a second Thailand trip, and we booked tickets. This time, we stayed at the Penthouse Hotel right off Beach Road in Pattaya. Right in the heart of the action, we got separate rooms, learning from our first trip and settled in for the real Pattaya experience. Martin suggested we start at a go-go bar he loved called the Tahitian Queen. It had good music and was one of the only go-go bars open in the afternoon. Later, we visited Misty's, where the girls wore catsuits and we both paid bar fines for some of the girls, taking them to a club. The next 2 weeks were filled with nights like this, and we had a fantastic time. Martin continued visiting Thailand twice a year, but I could only afford once yearly. By 2004, Martin had made enough trips to have many expat friends. We'd meet at a bar owned by a friend of his named George across from where Sugar Sugar is now. My days were spent wandering and visiting the Tahitian Queen while Martin became a night owl at the club. Martin had a new girlfriend, B, and introduced me to her friend, Suki, who had a Middle Eastern look and spoke good English. Another year passed, and in 2006, Martin and I returned to Thailand. Martin was visiting B's family in Udon Thani, and B even got his name tattooed on her leg. I was stunned when Martin told me he was talking marriage again. Suki never asked for money, and we enjoyed each other's company during that trip. But B started acting distant, and Martin went to investigate. She had become involved with certain substances. Martin met someone new online, an American woman, but even though he visited her in Colorado, things didn't work out. Finally, in 2012, after another breakup, I decided to give Thailand another shot. Martin and a friend named John joined me, and we booked into the Flipper Lodge on Soi 7. The first night I made a rookie mistake by paying too much for a bar girl, but I had added a stunning Thai woman named Pim on Facebook. She agreed to dinner, and I met her friends later in a bar called Lisa on the beach. Pim turned up to the dinner looking incredible, and we spent an amazing day and night together. She didn't even ask to return with me. I was smitten. Soon after, we all planned to visit Bangkok, where Pim joined us for a night at the Labua Hotel, and I bought her an outfit which really showed off her curves. We had a great time, and I cursed myself for not booking a longer trip. Later, I learnt that Pim had introduced Martin to her friend, Anne, who happened to live just 25 miles from our hometown in the UK. Anne had UK citizenship from a previous marriage and lived in Northampton. Martin and Anne married and had 2 kids, finally falling in love in a roundabout way. My last trip to Thailand was in 2015. I met a lady at a gig here in the UK, but it only lasted for a couple of years. Nothing had happened, we just drifted apart. Well, there you have it. It's a happy, bizarre story. I lost contact with my girl a few years ago, as my girlfriend then had not been overly impressed with my Facebook Thai lady friend, so I had to delete the account. I just hope she is still happy and wish her all the best. She gave my friend something he had been looking for all of his life, and she gave me an unforgettable time with her friend. I have decided to plan one more trip to Thailand. I guess I will be travelling alone, as all my friends are now married. I now get to be the old man I always did not want to become, who will troll the bars of Pattaya well into his old age and looking for love. Another great story there, and it happens to a lot of guys. I think everybody who comes here for the first time and they visit either Bangkok or Pattaya, they get tricked and scammed in little ways, you know, an extra beer being put on the bill, something like that. But the more people come back, they get their stripes and they learn to play the game in a much better way, and it becomes much more fun. And I'm glad it worked out for those 2 guys. Okay, the 5th and final story today is very, very short. It's from many, many years ago. I thought I'd just tag it on to the end of this upload, so I'll get straight into this one. I've really enjoyed your channel over the years, so I thought I'd share my own story. My first trip to Thailand was back in 1987 as part of a journey to Malaysia to meet a woman I'd been corresponding with through a dating club. At the time, I worked for a major airline and I had the advantage of free flight perks, but I had never travelled beyond the US. A cabin attendant friend, upon learning this, said to me, "You've got the rare opportunity to see the world. Get out there and make the most of it." Around then, I started exchanging letters with a Malaysian Chinese woman, and we'd built a connection through our correspondence. When I finally met her in person, everything went well, and we decided to apply for a 6-month fiancé visa so she could visit me in the US and see if there was potential for a future between us. It was 1988, and I'm skipping over a lot of experiences I had in Thailand along the way. Plenty of rookie mistakes, but memories I wouldn't trade. Since my airline didn't fly directly to Malaysia, I had to fly into Bangkok, then take the Bangkok-Singapore train to reach Malaysia. On our return trip to Bangkok, we booked a first-class cabin on the train to take in the experience. All was going well until about 2 a.m. when we were jolted out of bed by what sounded like the end of the world. A terrifying derailment. There was one fatality and numerous injuries, but we were fortunate to come through it unscathed. We found ourselves in the jungle near Chumpon, close to the Burmese border, stranded overnight amid suspicions of sabotage due to the conflicts in southern Thailand at the time. It was unsettling to say the least. Eventually, by mid-morning, a train arrived from the north to pick up the stranded passengers. Just before we left, though, a train steward came through the jungle, searching us out to collect payment for our previous night's dinner. And the adventure didn't stop there. Once in Chompom, I was told I'd need to pay for the rest of the journey to Bangkok. When I showed my first-class ticket to the agent, he responded, "Oh no, sir, this is for the train lying on its side in the jungle. If you want to take this train to Bangkok, you must pay a separate fare." It was then that I realised we're definitely not in Kansas anymore, Tonto. So you wouldn't believe that story. You'd think it was made up if you hadn't been to Thailand. You think, no way, they're not going to charge you when you've been in an accident. But, you've got to spend a few holidays here in Thailand and then listen to this story again, and then you'll realise it's probably true. Right, guys, that's it. 5 great stories again. Thanks to the guys who sent them in to me. As always, if you've got a story and you want me to read it out here on Thailand Bound, I'll change names, I'll make it anonymous, and you too can hear your story read out right here. Thanks again for listening to this week's collection of stories. I'll be back with some more next week. Whatever you're doing in the week, have a great week, and thanks for listening to me.